What's up, Blackbox Ballers? Welcome to another edition of Blackbox After Dark. I am your host, 7 Star Mike, and over here to my left is the Boeing Slayer, Queen Bee Jenny B. Tonight's guest is Scary Spice Mel B, the Duchess of Darkpool, Mel Motherfucking Stone. Before we begin, please take a moment and look through the pinned messages to get answers to the most frequently asked questions. I will give you the cliff notes. Darkpool does not show bullish or bearish. It does not. Put a line on your chart and watch the action around that line. You can use options flow around that to try and gauge sentiment, but please do not ask Mel if a Darkpool print looks bullish or bearish. Here at Blackbox, we will teach you anything, but we will not spoon feed you everything. So please have blackboxstocks.com and finviz.com opened in your web browser. And on that note, Mel can take this over when she recovers from this ridiculous introduction. Welcome, Jenny and Mel.
I am. Thank you guys for being patient. I'm here. So sorry about that. And just thank you. It's so awesome. I'm just getting so many good things, people putting some stuff together. So it makes it so worth it to see that we're able to, all learn together and kind of make sense out of beta. And that's all we're doing. Just trying to find where there's some relevancy and where we can get some trades and kind of follow the big money. So excited that everybody's here. Thank you for joining us. And just a recap from what Mike said. When we see a dark pool print, it is only that. It's just a transaction as far as we can tell. It has occurred. A big, large transaction has occurred, and we do not know if it is a buy or if it's a sell because it happened on the dark market. And given that information, we do not know any intent. We're used to looking at a level 2 and seeing where we've got bids and asks stacking up. However, on a dark market, we have zero insight, zero information. We only get to see because it's reported to FINRA, who oversees dark pool transactions, and then it hits the tape. And that's all we know. And so please keep an open mind when you see a print come across. It's very easy to say that stock's selling off and it's in a downtrend, and so it must be a sell. We're ripping today. This must be a buy. It doesn't work that way. Remember that institutions buy low and they sell high, which is vague when you look at the potential for a chart and further upward, momentum that it could have. But just be open-minded. Let the flow direct you, and look for other information to kind of give you clues. It's very easy to get excited because you see one print, but it can be misleading for a true direction. Now, if you're a day trader or a scalper, consider that there's volume that's hitting your scanners. So you will usually see some good moves occur from that, especially in these lower volume stocks. Those hit volume scanners, and they don't decipher whether it was true traded volume with a fair price discovery or that it was just happened in just one block. So there's some advantages if you're able to, if that's your trading style and you're able to capitalize on that, by all means, there's some good direction for you there. Otherwise, the way I personally like to look at it is kind of taking a more zoomed out view and looking at a lot of the same stuff that we look at when we look at flow, and a lot of the same stuff that Mike's talked about, Charlie, and all of the informational educational classes that we have. Pay attention to size, pay attention to repeats, and we'll kind of correlate a lot of the flow information with the dark pool because they really both kind of follow the same path. We're following big money. We're trying to figure out what they're doing and how they're positioning so that we can align best with them because they move markets. We don't. We can look at a technical setup that shows us that we're supposed to do this and it's supposed to break out, and then it doesn't because there may be positioning letting us know something is going a different direction. So it's an added element, and it's data. It's not noise. It's not an analyst upgrading a stock creating noise. It's not being pumped or bashed on CNBC or somebody else's opinion. That's all opinion. An analyst upgrading a stock is opinion. Kramer pumping a stock is opinion. Articles you read, opinions. But what you're going to see when you look at dark pools and you look at options flow is just facts. and where they're looking to position themselves. So stay data dependent, look at that information and just keep an open mind, and try not to develop a bias because you think this is supposed to happen because this is what you know and you've been told about the stock. Oftentimes there'll be moves, very large moves in the worst possible times in a stock. And a lot of times that news is created particularly to shake out weak hands, to create some chaos, because in order for a I refer to them as composite operators. In order for somebody to create a very large position, what do they need? They need supply to come into the market. If this is a stock that doesn't normally trade much size, they can't come in and just purchase from a supply that's not there. So keep that in mind when you're assessing some news stories. And of course, that's easy to day trade, scalp some of these, but it may not always be what the true direction is. So if you see some prints coming in the heat of a massive news story, it could be telling you something else. It could be irrelevant, and somebody using this as a time to scoop up some of these shares since they're available. And that's more of your longer term view. So of course, that's going to be dependent upon your trading style and what you're looking to accomplish. If you're looking to scalp a trade, hold it for a day or overnight swing, that's going to be totally different than somebody who's looking to set up a position for 6 months out. So that's always going to be relevant. We're all different here. And I think there's a lot of people excited with the opportunity to look at some more positional trades, swing trades. We do have a lot of people that can't keep up with some of the scalps and day trading, or it's just not their style. So it's nice to have some of the resources from the system we can pull to kind of accommodate that crowd and make sure that we're taking care of everybody in all the different trading styles, because we definitely have the resources to do that. And that's kind of an overview, and we can just go ahead and jump into some of the flow today. I will tell you, it was light today. After hours, particularly, was light. We've seen quite a bit, so I was kind of surprised to see kind of some lower volume, but I think that was kind of expected, just knowing we still had some of the bigger ones reporting this evening. I think tomorrow, if you look at the after hours, typically on Fridays after hours, you will see a ton of prints come through. I think tomorrow we're going to see some really good stuff. It's going to be very interesting to see what comes through the feed now that we've got Amazon, Google, some of the bigger ones. We've got the banks out of the way. We've got people probably looking to kind of set up some positions now that we've got some of the initial earnings out of the way. So hopefully everybody's got FinViz pulled up. We've got to be able to keep it. We've got to be able to keep it relative to something, and the easiest way to do that is to know what the average volume is. Examples that I've used before: Bank of America, with its shares traded and its float size, seeing 150,000 share print is just a drop in the bucket for that stock. It's really irrelevant and nothing you want to focus on. But we need to be able to compare it to something, because Smart SMAR that only trades 870,000 shares. Well, they had 2 dark pool prints yesterday that equaled almost their whole average daily volume in 2 transactions. That's relative. So, for example, I think one of them was 563,000. Well, they only trade on average. I guess maybe I should look at FinViz while I'm saying it. It's relative to what it's in each stock's individual float sizes.
Yeah, so for people that are trying to find that, go to finviz.com, FINVIZ. You can type in a ticker there. When you hit enter, it's going to pull up some information, and down at the bottom right-hand side, it's going to show you the average volume. That's what we're talking about here when we see what the average volume traded. Very easy to find. finviz.com, type in the ticker, hit enter, and it'll be in the bottom portion of the information that pulls up on the screen there.
And it's a really good resource while you're trying to quickly assess. You kind of have quite a naked chart, which can help sometimes if you add too much to your chart that creates some noise. So you get an overview, and then you're also being able to check out what the float is and see how what the percent short is, which could have an impact as well. If you're very heavy on the short side, and we've got a big block that just came through, and maybe we had some call positioning and options, that's some potential for, for a short squeeze should people have to start making some positions if that stock starts really moving up. So you kind of get it all in one place and can easily review all the information at one time. But definitely a great resource to use. And let's see. Okay, so we were kind of trying to kind of follow, kind of stay systematic with our approach and kind of start top level down. We've been starting with the ETFs, so we'll just continue like we have been doing and take a look there. So if everybody could pull that up, because I don't want to just talk, I want people to understand and see and kind of be able to paint, we could all paint the picture together, and that just helps. And really, didn't really notice anything that was really caught my eye. You're going to have positioning in ETFs, and you're going to have shifts. And it's important to look at your ETFs because they will tell you where there's rotation. Tech does not only go up forever. It's not the only thing that's moving the market. It may be a large part of it, but you need to know what your defensive sectors are. If you start to see a lot of funds starting to go to the XLU, and the XLRE, your REITs, super defensive, you start to see some heavy, bigger prints in that, because you don't normally see that unless there's about to be a big move. That's telling. And so you've got to put all these pieces together and kind of assess it, as it comes through. And from the SPY ETF side, there's not really much. I mean, there's not even anything that's over 1 million. So I'd say that probably most of it is pretty irrelevant. I think a recap from this week, we saw heavy positioning in the XLF. We did see some in XLU and home builders, XLB earlier in the week. So we do kind of have some positioning, but not seeing anything that catches my eye tonight. It's just small, pretty small relative to kind of what we've seen before. And we want to kind of see something, the same thing like that Mike and Charlie will say when they're looking at flow. If you got to find something, move on, swipe left, just there's no reason to try to make something out of nothing. And the more accustomed you get to looking at this every night, you'll be able to easily see what's going to catch your eye. Heavy prints in one sector, large prints in one sector. And that will kind of just be a skill, kind of like an art that you'll develop as you go through and start looking at this more and more. And it's just developed. Same thing with flow. It's important just to get the screen time and look at it. And it takes time. But we do have some interesting, I was able to pull out a few of these. We do have some interesting prints coming in. And we've kind of seen a few of these throughout the week. The EEM with some large prints. And this is not fall out of your chair prints. EEM can get size, for sure. So it is larger size. I've seen larger, but it is interesting to see where they're positioning when you look at some of these prints. I don't even know what the EEMV is. I highlighted it because I haven't seen that one before, but it looks like we've got continued positioning in the FXI, that's your China. We've got continuing in the EWZ, your Brazilian, EEM with continued size. So those are things that you stay mindful of, and you're not going to do whatever you want, but you wouldn't look to play necessarily the ETFs, but they are important so that you're staying mindful of what the holdings are and what stocks would be affected. Those are the things you're going to want to look at when we have flow coming through. So an example, you want, if you're looking at the XLF, you want to know which banks create the largest holding within the XLF. We have positioning in the XLF, because if we start seeing, like we have been, BAC, Wells Fargo, JPM, and a lot of these heavy weighted holdings in the XLF getting call flow, the XLF is going to go up. So we've got like match. We've got the XLF that's been seeing dark pool prints as well as call flow, and then we start seeing all the underlyings within that sector, all the holdings within that sector, and everything's call flow like we've seen this week. It's been massive. You got MS, GS, JPM, WFC, BAC. I mean, you've just got everything that seems to be tied to financials. And I think if you really look at the flow, of course, there's been what looks like some puts, but take an overall view, and there's a very bullish sentiment setting up for some long-term trades. So that's kind of how you want to look at that. It lets us kind of get a feel for where money's been rotating and what we can expect and what we need to look for to position alongside that. So I think I've gotten that one pretty much covered. Not anything that's really eye-catching. I don't think we're seeing it tonight because we had Amazon earnings. But tomorrow I believe we'll probably see. I think we're going to be very, very after hours dark pool print heavy tomorrow, so that will be interesting. And so let's go ahead and look. I guess I should have really done top down, not just middle top bottom. Oh well. Same thing here with the indices. Not really seeing too much size, and that's pretty telling when you look at SPY. We had a whole devoted page. I think we were double the line items yesterday with SPY compared to today, and the same thing in the other indexes. So just want to point out a few things that we discussed yesterday. We've got some Levi prints coming through. So in the SPY yesterday we had 299.96. And today we've got a level that's 301.36. You kind of want to keep those in mind. There isn't much volume at price for these levels, but it's going to be a spot that we are going to kind of bounce between yesterday's 299.96 and 301.36, and closes above today. Tomorrow, if we can close above today, we're still remaining pretty bullish with our outlook because we've maintained above all previous dark pool prints in the SPY that we've seen this whole week. We did have another DIA print come through, which is rare. You don't see those every night. So we've now seen it again for the second time. That print yesterday was 273.40, and today we've got 272.60. So want to keep those levels in mind. If we're going to stay bullish in the DIA, we want to be able to maintain on a closing basis price above. And very light on IWM and very light on the QQQ. So you can look and see where we were yesterday and kind of get an idea of positioning in today and what we want to stay above to kind of maintain some bullish outlook going forward. All right, so we got the check. We go to the equities. And it was taking me a little bit longer tonight because I did want to highlight a few things that I had noticed, just so we can kind of move a little quicker tonight. Oh, the KPE. Okay, so do we have any questions? And you guys, this is after hours. You can certainly unmute yourself and ask questions. That's encouraged, just so we can make sure that we're making the most of this time. Were there any questions with what we reviewed in the ETFs or the indices?
Let's go to the beginning of them. Some people are new into this kind of the dark pool information. So Dr. Rick is asking, what do the colors on your chart mean? You've got some highlighted colors on there. What do those mean?
Okay, so for the indexes, what I'm trying to highlight is what's called a Levi print. And a Levi print is a signature dark pool that hits the various indices. I would encourage you, if you're not familiar with that term, to please, after the call tonight, search in the dark pool channel Levi. And I have a very detailed explanation because I've had that question before and I knew that it would come up, so that you can kind of reiterate what I'm saying back to text. But essentially, it's a level that's received daily on most of the indexes. SPY, we pretty much get it every day, and it's going to be a signature print, and that's what alludes us to what we can capture and demote as a Levi print. So each index has their own kind of special signature. So for the SPY, the 501, the 500, 501, 502, 503, 504, 505. And that's referring to the share size, the start of the share size. So let me pull that back up. So tonight we're at 503. So that lets me know that's a signature print. That's what would be considered a Levi. We're at 503, 570. So you can see what I've highlighted shows that all those share sizes came at the same time and they all came at the same price. So that's letting us know that that's our main point of reference when we look to the dark pool and where we want to stay above. We do have a lot of active prints, pretty small considering what we saw, earlier this week and yesterday. Those are just mainly just other dark pool blocks. So, I mean, they do help to build out your volume by price, but the main level, just to simplify it, is going to be this 301.36. And then we'd look to yesterday's print as well to be mindful of. So hopefully you guys all have a journal next to you or a pad of paper to write through every day, and you're setting up stuff that you want to review later and you want to be mindful of. That's levels that you want to put before you start the day. What was yesterday's dark pool level? What was the day before? Because you're going to want to see how price interacts, at those levels. Oftentimes, if we've jumped up, we'll come down and retrace back to that level, and that's usually an area where we'll bounce and continue to either go further or we completely fail and fall below. So while you're learning this process, it's a very good idea to write these levels down in your notebook for your next day's journal so that you're looking at those price levels and you can be mindful of those through the day and see where price is reacting at those levels, so you kind of start to have more of a visualization with how those levels are impacted through the day and how they're often retested or levels where we pause and kind of consolidate and go sideways.
Okay, and Bruin wants to know, are dark pool prints included in a stock's volume when the print is made?
It sure is, and you'll see that print immediately on your chart. So again, a transaction has occurred and we don't have, they're not pulling liquidity off of the open exchange market. So you and I are not ballers. We got to hit the bid and ask on NASDAQ. These guys got a little special room that they go to and they have their own private discussions and negotiate trades, primarily because they can get very cheap fills considering their larger share size. However, that has to be reported, and that goes to FINRA, who oversees the dark pools, and then FINRA reports it and hits it to the tape. And so it's just letting us know that there's been a transaction, how much and at what price. So that is included. Nothing in dark pool is separate volume. All volume, one love. It's all together. What's important to look at when you're reviewing volume is how much of that may have made up that whole day's candle. So when you're looking at a stock that only trades 1 million shares and you're getting an after hours print for 1.2 million and the total day's volume was 1.8, that's important. That's like almost a whole day's volume on average in one block. There's intent there. There's somebody planning something or building a position or letting go of a position. It just helps to create some awareness. And then I personally use it for my watch list. I don't have a watch list that it tells me that the EMAs are crossing or something else. I get enough information by just trying to maintain and watch this and then watch flow that I don't really have a need to have other active watch lists, because I'm trying to stay a little more honed in on where I know there could be positioning and where I could potentially capture a move from that.
That's all the questions we have so far. So if anyone else has other questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat text room and we'll get to them as we go. So if anyone has any questions right now, please go ahead and type them. Or if you're on voice, unmute yourself and go ahead and ask on voice.
Yes. We can make this interactive. I mean, it's after hours. We don't just ask. Y'all are making me so proud, Johnny. Almonds. Oh, y'all get it. Tricuspid, you don't know. It's just letting us know that there was a transaction, and it's creating awareness. I know a lot of you guys focus in your 1 minute because you're used to scalping and day trading. Zoom it out a bit and look at it from a different perspective. It's not something that's going to be immediately known either. If there's some accumulation and somebody's looking to build a position, you don't know it right away. It's something that that will come later, and hopefully, let me kind of pull. I posted some blocks in Starbucks today, and you could tell from the prices when you look at that chart, there was huge size at 70, 71, 72, 70, 50. And if you match that up on your chart, then you can see where they had already been setting up for a position, and now you have a massive move. So it's just helping you to create awareness, and that's why it's very good for your swing trading. For, if you're looking to more build a position, but that's all going to really come down to where they're setting up with the options market. So just because we see a print, it doesn't mean just go run and buy something or run and sell something, because you really don't know. We want to be able to correlate it to the flow, because the flow is going to let us know where they're positioning, and it has to be very clear, very aggressive, with size and directional. We have a created awareness. We've reviewed the dark pool list. We know that there is positioning in what stocks, what sectors, and then we just wait. So there's not too many trades that may come right away. There definitely are if you're day trading or scalping, but long term, oftentimes you'll see that price will stay within a range, because they're not only looking to just buy 1 million shares. They may be looking to buy what we won't even know, and they say very range bound. So if you take a look at like Disney has been range bound for 2 years. That's why it's having such an explosive move. You've been very price pegged. If you zoom it out and look at that structure between a range, and we've only ever chopped kind of sideways after for quite some time. So there's a lot of energy built up in those ranges, and now we've got a lot of great upward momentum. There's positioning all through that, and I posted a chart of that in the general feed. I don't think I have it to share here. No, I don't. Oh, I do here. This is a great example. And this is study. I mean, like, this is pull up price. I mean, pull up your chart and look at each of these time frames. And this is giving us some history going back into March. And look at this move. Look at this size. Disney only traded back when I first started tracking Disney, and I missed every part of this move, every part of this, because I didn't have access to know the options and where they were positioning. And that highlighted box that happened in March and all the size that came in, I created a bias and I said it was a sell, and I was shorting, and then we ripped to the upside and missed a huge opportunity. But why? Why was there so much size right here? While we had, more than likely, I'm not too sure, but more than likely, this is a news event. What's highlighted where we had a lot of this drawdown, and look on the chart when you look in March, and this size and this block size, most of this happened after hours, and it was large block size. Why was there large block size? Because there was so much supply coming into the market that somebody who wanted a position in Disney could actually get the shares that they were looking to get. This only normally traded 10 million, so you couldn't get all the shares that you would want. There had to be some kind of news event and some kind of fear that was going to shake people out, so that investors could step in and buy those shares from people that were giving them up. I mean, you have to have supply. You can have all the demand you want, but if you don't have the supply to fulfill that, you're not going to get a large order filled. So I really, really encourage everybody after to please take this, print it, blow it up, look at the structure in Disney, even outside of this time range and zone, look at the weekly, and you can see like this was a powerful move. It was awesome. And had I been with Blackbox and seen options flow and been aware of maybe where they were setting up with their positioning, I could have been on the better side of the trade, and I like lost money. And this is the main reason why I focused, because I saw moves in Snap, blocks in Snap, Cody, Disney, just major stocks that took massive moves, and everybody was assuming all these blocks were sells, or they didn't even see them. And I just didn't know how to correlate all the data. And that's when I really started to like record this so that I can learn from it and go back to the charts. So it's a great case study. We've had some good moves, and I think we're setting up for a lot now. I mean, we're seeing some really good size, and just need to make sure we're, staying open-minded, watching the flow, staying open-minded.
I have my hand up.
Okay.
Hey, so again, I'm a little behind. I know you've been doing sessions, so if there's anything, definitely let me know. So I'm looking at DISC Discovery. And I just want to make sure you have it highlighted green. Simply, I mean, there's 9 million volume on that transaction, right? So that's
in one block.
In one block, right? And the average is about 2 million.
Because you're on FinViz and you looked that up yourself?
Right, correct.
Awesome. I only say that
Yep.
I'm not being facetious, but I still have people that, I mean, Mike was the only one doing it yesterday. So I just want to make sure people are really, really actively looking at that, because that's what you're going to learn.
Yeah. I want to follow your process. So this makes sense. Now, the next thing you would probably do is you want to look at the flow, but you look at the chart immediately, right, to kind of see what's going on.
Yes and no. So let me pull up FinViz, because oftentimes you have large positioning that's going to occur when the stock is dull and quiet. Nobody's looking at it. And when is that going to happen? If you were to technically look at this chart, you're under a 200-day, you're under the 50-day. You've got a lot of stuff technically broken that makes that very much a bottom feed Fisher. Like it's not one that you're like, that's going places.
Right.
So I mean, oftentimes you have to wait. Now, I do have a position in Mod's play on this chart. I mean, on this that was open because we did see very large volume in disc A. And then we had very strong, longer dated options. I think they were the 816s. So we went ahead and we took the call. Strong flow, like stuff that was, this is an unusual name. There was nothing that was even put side. It was all call, heavy. It was even pumped on, Nigerian pumped it. We took a position, and then the next day we're in half from where we currently bought in. And I get DMs constantly. Are you still in this? Yes, I am. I'm okay with that because stocks are going to pull back, especially, while the ponytail pumps are great when you're intraday trading, they don't often work very well for you the next day.
No, they definitely
usually
don't.
A lot of hype and then sell off.
Yeah.
That's expected. So I kind of expected that.
Right. So back on this chart, I actually like this chart a lot, and I've only spent maybe 4 minutes on the daily chart.
Okay.
So that's why I just wanted to make sure I understand kind of just vaguely what.
Yeah, I mean, so you kind of want to be, somewhere positionally, but oftentimes when you see the bigger prints, they're coming in when the chart looks like death, like, ooh, that's no way. And so it's something to create some awareness about, and then look to flow. But this one, we're actually in disc A, and then this is disc K. So it has something that's not my forte and not something I've spent much time with, but they have different.
Yeah, I know.
And essentially it's going to affect their voting. So I would assume that if we saw stuff in disc A and now we're seeing stuff in disc K, that you have definitely a correlation,
Okay.
So I have that marked because we do have a mod position there, and we've got several in there. We had strong flow, and we had strong flow when the Nigerians pumped it. And you could look historically to see that. The next day, we had follow-up flow, even though we had really pulled back. And then we've had some scattered here and there, and they're still in OI. Thank you, Jim. Yep, we're in the disco. We're in the Octobers, the 35s or 37s.
Yeah, and I remember you talking
Yeah.
about it, and that's why I wanted. Okay, man, I actually. All right, I'm glad I joined because I think I can find a way for this.
Yeah, and really, if this is not a position you're currently already in, you guys are probably going to get better pricing than we did. So we're look at mods. It's in there. Search it. It's the disc A.
That chart's actually similar in a way.
Okay. Yeah, it's the same company, Hamish. Hey, Mel, I got one for you.
Sure.
I think I tagged you earlier, so we're going to watch this.
Okay, let me pull that up. AKRX. So this would be a risky as fuck automatically because it is a bio.
Yes, and this is risky as fuck. You don't touch it yet.
Yes.
Because this is the first block that I've seen come across my scanner too. Right? Okay. So I play this guy. But they got beat to nothing. What, about 4 months ago, I think. So
yes,
yeah. Once again, it's a bio though.
Yes.
And
so,
CR, this is date.
Hold on. All right, let me just post something really quick on AKRX because I think a lot of what pulled this stock down is where you had some hedge funds reporting some closes. You had Steve Cohen, 0.72. That's a hedge fund manager you definitely want to be familiar with. He does make money moves.
And he closed out?
He closed. That was disclosed on the last quarterly filing. So I think that's where you had a lot of sell. You had, and then so you do have some. So you do have. Anytime I post a screenshot from HedgeMind, he separates the institutional flow, and that's why I personally like it because BlackRock. I'm seriously convinced that BlackRock just said, we have billions and billions of dollars. We're going to buy 100 shares of every company on the SPY. Just see how this just a roll, like every putting money on every number on the roulette table and just like, let's see how this works because they are in everything. You may have institutional holdings, like a BlackRock is one of them, but that's not going to be your like, ta-da, BlackRock owns this because if you look up their quarterly filings when they come through, they own everything. So disregard some of the stuff that BlackRock's owns. HedgeMind only focuses when I'm putting screenshots like this on the hedge fund managers for the last 3 years that have had at least a certain percentage of returns, positive returns, and this is why they're considered top hedge fund managers because they have specialties, they have returns, and you want to kind of align yourself, of course, with core managers and people that have had the most returns. So just a side note there. So you do have somebody that did start a small position. That's not, even 500,000 shares. You had somebody that didn't change their position. Again, very small size. And then you did have Steve Cohen, 0.72, completely shut out his whole position. And he was the larger holding there.
So Mel, there was a question earlier about, does flow come first or does dark pool come first? Or does it interchange kind of in your experience?
It kind of interchanges, and it's going to be hard to say because I have spent almost a year solely looking at, where people have spent a lot of time trying to study and watch videos and run back scans on, MACD crossings and tweaking their settings. And they've, really had a calling and a natural, it just works for them having, some technical indicators that they understand fully because they've researched and studied them. They can tweak them to their liking and run code to make it even better and run scans off of it. They're spending time to do that, and it's what works for them. This is what works for me, is I want to know where the volume, how we're even making that candle and where it's coming from. So I have a little bit more of some history and muscle memory already kind of built in. So if a print comes, more than likely there isn't, it hasn't just been one print. There's been other prints before. So while we work to try to tie it together, oftentimes you want to see kind of some multiple prints will take some time. and then you can have flow. And if it's clear and aggressive, you're set. You know, I mean, like if we see a big dark pool block today and we get some like badass flow tomorrow, I mean, like there we go. They've already set up in stock, and then now the analogy I use is that oftentimes the accumulation is happening on the dark pool to get the shares at the price that they want, and that's usually when the stock is dull and quiet. And then I consider what's done in the option market, because it is so pure, as in there's no pre-market trading, there's no aftermarket trading, of course, except for your few indexes. There is no dark pool on options. So what is coming across is everything we're seeing, and we're getting that all on Blackbox. So I consider the flow on the option market, and I mean, it needs to be extremely, no question, just that good flow. And there's clear intent. That's an invitation on directionally where they're looking to go. And now they know that that is also being seen by HFT, algos, us, other institution buy sides that are watching the same scanners we are. We're also watching the dark pools. What a lot of them don't do is look at the after hours dark pool. And that's where I've found there is a lot of advantage to being able to get all of the data. Wall Street closes at 5. They shut down, they go home, just like most of us in the room do. And if we didn't have this after hours dark pool scanner, would you even have known all this volume that's coming in after hours? And that's some size. Would you have known that 9 million shares just hit the tape on Disca? If you were to be running your scans right now and looking at volume, would you have known that most of today's candle came in just one block? No price discovery. Essentially, it's just one block. It gives you a different way to look at, where essentially the open market is the last place any institution is going to go to actually make a purchase. That's for us and HFTs and some occasional smaller funds that set up there. Most of that's in the dark pool because of the pricing. And also you're finding buyers that actually can come through with your size, or sellers that can come through with your size, or you're going to a market maker, or they have their own desks that they're working between internally that are all on the dark pool, and they've got one, and they're able to link all these buyers and sellers and not have this riffraff because I want to buy 50 shares of one company. They're not working with it. They just want to know who's the bigger and what's going on from there.
Hey Mel, so these the two files you shared tonight, the equities and then the ETF PDFs, right?
Okay.
Are you exporting these for the room daily and then posting them in the room? I'm just trying to get caught up.
Okay, so this was a extremely manual process for me before, and I was spending about 3.5 to 4 hours every night trying to take this information from the tape and enter it into my own personal spreadsheet.
Right.
And so I've been working with Eric on the backside, on the back end, because originally what they had the scanner set up to show was like only show if there's a dark pool block that's 250,000 or more. And that was the only thing that we had visibility in coming through. But that doesn't really make sense because Amazon is not going to have that kind of share size. So what we weren't getting was that there was 75,000 shares that hit in Amazon,
Right.
which it all ties to being relative. That is size for Amazon because it doesn't normally see that kind of size. It doesn't get a lot of dark pool activity. And if it does, we're more within the range of, 20 to 30,000. So 75,000 that's notable. We weren't getting Google, we weren't getting any of these larger tickers and a lot of this stuff that you guys like to actively play because it was just show us 250 and more. So Eric and I have been working together, tried to get this tweaked, and then we got that pushed through as an update. We wanted to make sure there was some double check going on with what we were going to show for after hours. And so I did some double checking just to make sure it was right and matched, and it showed with a different system, and we were good to go. Just Namish, to get you caught up, the prints that come through that we're seeing on the feed is only dark pool. So what we're seeing after hours excludes mock. So there's no market on close orders in there. And market on closed orders hit the normal exchange. So they'll be coded as NASDAQ or whatever exchange. These others are reported on an ADF, which is just saying that that's FINRA reporting it because it was on an alternate display facility or an alternate trading, whatever ATS means. But so it's separated, and that's where there's the rarity with it, and that's why a lot of people don't look at dark pool volume because they just assume that it's your market on close or it's a rebalance, and they don't have a scanner that's actually identifying what the coding is, and the coding is telling us that it was a dark pool print. And oftentimes they do share the same price that we see for closing volume because they've had a pre-negotiated, I want to be filled, here, and just put it with closing price, and that can be their standing order, and they're fine with that. They're not trying to get the 5 cents here or there if they're really looking to take some huge size and trying to get in. They want to have kind of some discreteness if they're looking to try not to move price against them. And think about it, after hours everybody's shut down. The algos are turned off. There's no high frequency trading. I mean, except with Amazon earnings today, that drove that shit down. But there's no other participants to have an open market. If you only have one print that hits, it's not catching anything else to kind of create any other auction process.
Right. Okay, so you're actually working with Eric on having something that's going to output this after hour stuff, right? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah. So I originally did this manually by looking at the feed and recording it, and now he's able to kind of a report, and we're still working on tweaking some things.
Got it.
So
okay.
I've just tried to tell him that there's just a lot of interest, and I need something to make it easier for me because I'm spending 3 and 4 hours at night trying to manually do this, that I can't do any research because by that time, and I can't even get started on this until it's official market close because we'll have prints all the way up to then. So I was starting at like 7 and going to like 10, 11 o'clock at night before I could even put the list. I had no time to review anything and look for setups or even try to really process the information and look at charts. So he's getting this, and I'm kind of double checking some things, cleaning it up, and then dumping it here.
No, I like this a lot as an add-on bonus. Like, for example, the disco play, like I'm looking at the chart on my end for one of my swinging strategies, and she looks like she's almost setting up to like alert on my strategy to play the upside. So it's like, I'm thinking like quickly here, it's like, man, if I had the dark pool knowledge you had, and you already had it on Disca, and then it's coming up on my strategy that I like to play, it's just that much more ammunition and confidence for me to want to play it.
And we had the flow. And I think there's a write-up on Disca. I may have done, if you search for Disc A, I believe I had that, may have done a write-up. I don't recall if I did.
You did. And that's what, when I saw the one with the K today, that's when I started thinking of everything. I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah, well, get in. You'll be better priced than we are. You're already winning.
I think I'm going to because I like it. I like the chart. I really like the chart. It's about, like, I like playing on the daily for swings, a Fisher and the MACD 595 together when they cross, and they look like they're about to cross over, and then there's like a gap fill in that chart to about 32, 33, like near term, and you have the ER coming up, so you're going to get some of that.
Yes, and I'm holding through ER. Like, I
that's
want
the other thing. I'm like, wait a second. There's all this flood. There's this unusual, I'll call it, dark pool activity. The chart's looking set. It's almost like everything, all the information we could have is pointing to upside. Obviously, we don't.
They're still there. They're still in their October and November's. I checked the options chain. I'm getting some of my stuff a little bit confused, but they're still actively there.
So this one's not the Discovery credit card. I keep getting that confused.
Nope. This is Discovery Channel, which is Telcom, which has been hot. I mean, when you look at a lot of the sector has been.
They are, and they have good content. I haven't been paying attention, but I wonder, are they part of some package $10 remote thing? I don't know. But anyways.
Yeah, they do. Namish.
They do, right?
Yeah. So there's service or subscription package plus just think about all the medias right now. We had all the dish activity, AT&T. It's sector wide, right?
Yep.
So
strong sector. Stay in the strong sectors.
All right. Yep. Alan's saying Travel Channel, HGTV. Man, I'm loving this play. I love this dialogue tonight.
But I mean, it goes back to knowing your trading style and your trading plan.
Right.
This is not something to play weeklies. It's something to set it and forget it. And I really wish there was just a hide button on your broker so you can go, this one I don't want to look at. This is in my back pocket. And these I want to worry about. So let's separate this one here and then let me just focus on this. It'd be great. Because a lot of people are like, whoa, we're cut in half. I said, yeah, I know. But we're in October.
Just one more question. There's docu.
Slow your roll.
On the screenshot, there's docu on the print, and I'm noticing that's yellow. But when I check the average, it's way below the average. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Can you explain to me why the docu's highlighted yellow today?
What are you showing?
Hold on.
As the average on that one?
1 second. Let me just pull it right up. So the average on docu, I'm seeing 2.3, and then
which is still smaller size.
Right. And these guys got one for 195,000, the other for 100,000.
Yeah. And I highlighted that because that's repeat flow. We've seen some other dark pool prints that were larger this year, and we're seeing those as repeat. So I've marked them as repeat.
Okay.
I'm marking them as interest. Yeah, for docu. That's of interest to me because we've already seen bigger prints. And that's interesting that we already had prints and then we had some more prints and then now we're seeing some more prints. So like it's kind of part of, what your eye will start to become accustomed to as you look through these. You're looking for like, oh, that was interesting. We had 500,000. Okay, average volume. Okay, that could be notable. Put that and jot it on a notepad. Interesting because that's could in a strong sector, slower mover. But we could just wait. See for flow, and then it came up again, and that came up again, and also kind of one of your smaller cap names. Just I don't care about Facebook and positioning and all these names that you can't make heads or tails of. But once you start going through this list and you see every day, something's going to catch your eye because you've never seen it on the list before. And like, oh, what's that? And then we look at FinViz. What's the sector? What's the average volume? Oh, okay, interesting. Unusual. And it will create a spot in your memory. And then tomorrow or 2 days from now when there's flow and it's aggressive and it starts coming in docu, you really don't have to think about much because you already know that there's been some dark pools and you've been waiting for somebody to say, it's calls and we're going out into October and we're putting a lot of money on it. And you're like, I'm joining ya. I'm right there with ya. And that's essentially a lot of my process and what I do. I just try to do a little more research and be a little more patient, spend more time looking through this stuff and then being what I feel is, as prepared as possible. It doesn't always work out like that, but it's a setup that I would take over and over and over again and be comfortable with. But that's my process. And I'm comfortable seeing where we've had big moves off of charts. It's just a matter of positioning as well.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was so helpful for me. Thank you so much.
And speaking of the prints coming in, we had 2 questions earlier I wanted to touch upon on voice, just in case they were not paying attention to the screen that's moving somewhat quickly. There were 2 questions on where we see the live flow. If you look on the very right side of your Blackbox platform, you can change that to the news, the chat room. The very first button is going to be your alert stream. If you click on that and then click on the filter, you can see the dark pool prints live as they come in throughout the day. So that is part of the Blackbox platform. It's all the way on the right side. And at the very bottom, you have those green buttons. The first one is going to be your alert stream. If you click on that, you'll find the dark pool flow, and that will come in real time throughout the day.
Yes, and that's all. I only filter it just to show dark pool because I'm trying to keep that on my top alert so that I could actually post stuff in the room. And I do ask, while this is so exciting for everybody, and you see that Bank of America had a $250,000 print, please let me post the daily dark pools, because I do have a little bit more insight with what's going to be something that's better to be shared versus something that's maybe a little more common. And until you develop more and you're watching this more, that will come to you. But I don't want to over flood and create noise into somebody's trade that may actively be trading something, and they think it's something and it may not be, because 250,000 shares in Bank of America is nothing. So I'm been trying to keep up with that, and as I see stuff, I'm posting it. And if I'm posting it, it's because it's relative to its average volume. It's a repeat. I will post some Tesla, Amazon, Google, some of these bigger names that I know people are actively trading, because maybe they've been waiting for this to break out. And we just saw 150,000 shares, and that's being seen by everybody. That's volume. You're seeing the volume bar. Volume is coming in. It's going to start hitting scanners on the volume scanners, high volume scanner. It's hitting that. So if somebody's looking to kind of catch a move that is more specialized in scalping, that's a great opportunity to see which direction that could possibly go. I don't personally do that, but I know that there have been some people that have been able to really make some good trades off of that. So I do just ask that please let me just post that data throughout the day, so that I'm kind of keeping it pretty focused. And of course, we'll get the end of the day list. It's not meant to be like you have to remember that. It's going to come on our end of the day list like we have right now, but it's just the potential for what could possibly be active, trades or stuff that we saw flow in yesterday, or very large size, a variety of things. But if I'm posting it there, it's because it's not just to post the whole data feed that you guys can look at yourselves. It's just to kind of make note of some things we've seen recent flow in, or we're seeing them flow in today, or it's a repeat and could be a mover, or various things that I'm kind of.
And Johnny Boy wants to know, how can we look up historical? Is there any way to find out the print if we're not watching it live and we want to go back and find that?
Well, you'll have this list to reference, and it would depend on what kind of broker you have. Fidelity has a great time and sales. TOS does not. TOS has no look back and no recorded time and sales. So if you wanted to be able to look at that, if you have Fidelity, you can go to their time and sales, and you'll be able to see prints, and then you can go to the day before or 3 days before, and you can actually look at some of that volume.
Can you find it on Blackbox or no?
No. Right now, we currently don't have a look back. But all of this stuff and all of these lists that we've been going through and all of this data that's been coming through since Eric and I have been working on it, Blackbox is capturing all that data on the back end. And ultimately, what is going to happen once we fine tune everything and it gets pushed as one of the top projects, there's still a lot of stuff that's kind of happening in the background. That's ultimately going to be on the charts within Blackbox, and we'll be able to add a study that will show us dark pool volume. So you would see, if we pulled up for example, tomorrow we get a badass call flow aggressive, we'd be able to go to the chart, pull up dark pool volume as an indicator, and it's going to show us that today we had prints, yesterday we had prints, the day before we had prints, the day before we had prints, we had prints here, we had prints here, and we had prints here, and all at the price levels and the volume that they came in at. So essentially, it's not going to be such a manual process for any of us, but there is so much eagerness and excitement around trying to learn this. So we're kind of trying to provide some educational content and a workaround for right now, while we are waiting on that data release. But I think that's pretty powerful too, because by the time that hits, there's going to be masses of people that are going to be so on it. It will take very little educating, because you guys are going to really already have so much of an awareness and already know what to look for and how to align it all together and how to be able to position yourself in some trades without my guidance, without any guidance. You're going to have the information that you need. So it's going to be just amazing.
And there's one more thing I want to throw out. If you have any other questions, please, by all means, type them or get on voice and ask. But Mel is sharing a ton of information with us and spending a ton of time with us. So definitely we want to thank her a million times for that. But but please do not ask her if she is still in a trade. And that's for two reasons. One, it takes up a lot of time to answer 75 DMs about, are you still in a trade? And two, if she posts an entry, she's going to post an exit. And three, if we want to add one more, if you decide to follow her into a trade, it is now your trade. You can ask for information and clarification on what we're looking at, but once you hit that buy button, that is your trade. So if it gets down to a stop loss that you're not comfortable with, and she is comfortable, she can stay in it, and you are by all means free to exit. What we don't want to see is, and some of the other mods are getting this also, is 75 DMs. Are you in this trade? Are you still in this trade? Are you still in it? If they post an entry, they will post an exit. And if you are in a trade because you followed someone into the trade, that is now your trade. So you are responsible for managing it. If she's comfortable with a 30, 40, 50% drop and you're not, you should not be in that trade still. So please don't harass the DMs about, are you in a trade? Because if they're in a trade, I promise you they will post that they are out of the trade.
Exactly. I mean, you know, most people aren't used to swinging, and if it's not your style, then that's difficult for you to do, and it may not be for you. I play small when I play spec. You know, I'm not taking half of an account and buying spec options here. I think I took 3 and then I added when it dropped a little bit and posted that. So I'm now at a position of 5, and that's my max. I'm not going anymore, but I'm out into October and I'm comfortable with the positioning that I have, waiting for, a better move, but I'm not locking up all of my funds capital that I could be day trading with, so keep it relative. If some of these look like attractive to you and you're kind of like, that'd be nice to kind of have a few things working in the background that I don't have to babysit, buy 1, buy 2. It's a lesson in patience by all means, and it's nothing's easy to do if you're sitting with too heavy on your position sizing. So these are just speculative ideas that can work out or they can't work out. And it's just a way to try to integrate some of what we're seeing, the data, the flow, Darkpool data, the flow, and trying to see if we can catch some part of that move. But I'm by no means going heavy, and I've been very diligent about posting my size so that you can see that I am taking this position. I feel very strongly with my research, but I'm still only getting 2 because I don't want to wrap up equity, and I'm a smaller account size that I could be using in the interim to actively try to grow. I want to try to catch this move. I don't want to have to worry about it. Setup looks great, and I'm park that money, but I've still got enough here that I could day trade.
Yes,
swing trade, do the other trades around.
Yeah, know your type of trades, know your personality. So the discovery, that's out to October. So if you don't like having capital tied up for October, no matter how much information is presented, if that's not your style, either don't get into the trade or buy 1 contract so you're not looking at it every single day wondering what's going on with it. It's for October. It might not hit 100%. It might not hit 20% this week or next week. It's way out to October. It has time. And if we go back to the Disney example that she showed us, we went over it last night. I don't know if that was the same one you posted tonight, but the Darkpool started coming in March, and it wasn't until June or July that the stock started taking off. So
after
if you're in a
earnings.
longer term position and that's not your style, you're going to look at it every day wondering why it's not moving. And it might be a play designed for 3 or 4 months down the road. So you have to know your trading style. And if you get into something that's long term and you're not a long term swing style trader, your heart rate is going to go up, your anxiety is going up, your capital is tied up because you're going to want to pull it out at the first sign of breaking even if it's down. And that's a bad trading habit. So the same thing with flow goes for the Darkpool. It's just another way to trade with more information. But if there's a longer term trade based on Darkpool information, and if you want to be a Darkpool trader, by all means, do not get into a December, January, February position if you're kind of looking for profits in the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, because it might not hit. The Disney example was a perfect example because it showed 3 or 4 months between the Darkpool action and when that stock finally started taking off. So definitely know what kind of trader you are. And if a long-term position opens up based on Darkpool, please don't get into that trade unless you commit yourself to not looking at it every day.
Exactly. Well, let me skip to a lot of the prints, some of that you guys have, and then some that caught my eye. So I'll kind of start with kind of some is going to take more research. If I'm highlighting something, putting this together, I haven't even really looked at the chart. It's just something, it means something I want to go back to, and look at. We did have that bio, lower price, good size. Don't usually see that in the name. We've got some positioning in BAX, BAX. There may still have earnings tomorrow, so that may not be relative, or they may have had it this morning. The CMCSA, so we've had a lot of prints in TMA, Sprint, Verizon. We've had a lot of activity, in these in this sector, and we definitely have a large print here with some smaller supporting prints, and we've seen some repeats in this name. So that's something to be mindful of, and they may or may not have earnings. So still keep that in mind. Just like in options, there's a lot of activity that occurs around earnings season. You're going to have a lot of dark pool prints around earnings season as well. So some of this may not maybe positioning, into that, and may not be actionable, but it's still kind of something to be mindful of. CRM already reported. We had some good prints in that. So that'll be interesting now that we're seeing some activity after they've reported earnings. CSX, that's interesting. We've got some of the rails. Rails are important for kind of further upside growth and potential. We had some good reports coming out of JB Hunt. Watching that sector, along with semis and some of your other transports is always a good sign for if they're going strong, we're going to kind of stay strong. It's kind of what's, fuels our economy. Carvana, that's one where we saw prints yesterday, seeing some repeats. Data is a name that doesn't normally see size. DocU, we talked about, we're seeing some repeats. 8, while it's smaller, EGHD, that's a rare print that doesn't normally see size. Repeats in Ford. This FDC is interesting considering the sector that it's in, that's payment processing. We saw some prints, or we just had PayPal earnings. So this could be some positioning alternately. These are some repeats here as well. I don't know that they've reported. GDX, that's definitely some size. We've been seeing a lot. We've already had some positions, some size way before these started coming out. So I don't really have an assessment. I just know that some people trade gold. So I wanted to highlight that. Light is interesting. That's not one that we normally see any flow. So yes, that is kind of on the smaller size, but considering we don't normally see prints in this name and it's a smaller average volume, that could be relevant. I don't even know what MCHI is. I do know that we had some flow today. I think Towley had called that out. So interesting seeing a pretty big print, and I don't recall seeing that name. And if you want to look at what is that? I haven't heard of that company before. So if you want to see what that is, you're on this list, you're also getting some of your bonds, you're getting some, obscure ETFs and some defensive, positioning. I don't know what that name is. Nokia, that does look of interest because we've got, some big prints setting up here, but that's a very large float. Like that's a 1 billion share float. So I believe they may still have earnings or have already come out with earnings. Shack is definitely interesting. Here we go again with some of these small cap names that it's nice to see some positioning setting up here. Yes, Jim, that SBGI, didn't we have something in previously? I think Blues Girl was trying to look at that. We had some insider buying or something there. So great eye on that. Maybe check out Open Insider. Nice. Okay, that's good. Check and see historical flow if we've had something there. But yes, we had some good insider buying there, and not sure if we had the dark pool prints or not. I'll have to double check that, but good eye. Snap is very interesting, great size, and we're after earnings. So now that we're starting to see some companies report, it's going to be interesting to see, Snap had great earnings. Maybe they're coming in, and trying to catch some of the bigger move and some of the forward growth the company has. Not too sure. We'll just have to kind of watch for that. STNE, this was kind of an institutional darling last quarter. has kind of pulled back. It had some great moves, a few months ago, and could have some additional upside there. And we've got Survey Monkey, which rarely sees prints and flow, has moved very well off of flow before, so something to keep in mind. I did point out TSG, but I did start a mod position for swing play. We talked about this last night. We've seen prints on top of prints on top of prints. We've had flow, historical flow that creates a bullish bias. They're still in open interest. So we did start that position today. So kind of happy seeing some additional love there. Hopefully it's love and not just distribution. Visa's interesting. They did have their earnings, so seeing some size here could create some upside. And Xilinx, that's interesting too. I think they reported tonight. So that's the main stuff that caught my eye going through. ESTC. What? I think I get that one confused with something else. Let me see what we got there. That's a repeat, right, Samir? That's something you had been looking at before when we did this a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Okay. See, so you're going to start to catch some names, and each of us are going to be looking at different things that are going to catch your eye. And don't overwhelm yourself with everything that's on this list. Zoom out, take a look at all the names and see what you can see. Looking for themes. Oh, good news. I think we're looking at trying to get this list that will include sector and industry. That way we could easily identify themes and see where we're getting some money rotation and see what sector has gotten the most love, and then being able to break it down further to show us what industry they're kind of aligning to. So there's stuff going on in the background, and they're getting the feedback. They know there's a lot of interest, and they're working to get this better and better and better. And I think next we're trying to see what we can do about getting average volume so that we have it in one place and can not have to pull up FinViz and can easily identify some stuff that's unusual. So a lot of the feedback that I've gotten is definitely going up higher, and they're working on trying to integrate a lot of this into the system as well.
Blackbox is always getting better day by day. So if you guys have suggestions, by all means, send them in. We've seen a ton of improvement just in the time frame that I've been here. And the things I hear about what they're doing in the future, it's mind-blowing. But these guys are constantly working behind the scenes to give us more and more.
Infinite. So what we had seen today was a sister sector, essentially. So it's going to be amongst the larger umbrella, which is good, casino gambling related. But SGMS, which is well, I can't say I really know exactly what it is, but in general, it's your like lottery, online gambling, and some of these other sectors that are not necessarily your casinos, like your known names, MGM, LVS, Wynn, but they still have exposure to that sin sector in a sense, So what I was referring to were the tickers SGMS, IGT, PEN, and then TSG. And I started a swing position in TSG because of the prints that I've seen there. And I think that we've got some potential upside. That is a position I will be holding through, earnings. And you will each have to make that decision for yourself. But we are longer term. I think we aligned with some flow. No, maybe it was the November 20s. Sorry, it's starting to get late. So yes, but that's good for the sector. So SGMS, because they had either a new stake or an analyst that was bullish on SGMS, which is great because these have a lot of upside potential. And we've already seen positioning. If you want to go back and look at the flow and look at historical for PEN, PENN, and IGT and TSG and SGMS, those are unusual names, and we've seen them. I've seen IGT come through a lot, and they may be smaller, so they don't necessarily catch your eye and catch the scanner, but they're there and they're still set up in OI. So it's interesting to see we've got a sector that's about to start moving, and we've got a lot of, bullish positioning going in our favor as well. So definitely interesting to see that. And I'm sorry, I may have missed some. It's been hard to kind of keep up with. So thanks so much, Mike, for your help.
I think we're pretty much up to date. So if anyone else has any further questions, type them in, or again, by all means, jump on voice. This isn't a one-way dialogue here. It's not preaching to anyone. If you have questions, if you want to make a comment, jump on voice. We would love to hear you. If not, type something in the bottom and we'll read it out and get to you.
And again, this is overwhelming when you're looking, the full list. So if you have some names that, you've kind of been like, that's been interesting, that hasn't really done much and there's some upside, keep an eye out for those, stay with your process for sure. Zoom out a little bit to kind of see if you can catch a theme. Otherwise, there may be other stuff that caught your eye that you see on the list tonight because you saw some flow, or it's just putting pieces of the puzzle together. And I can't make moves off of this whole list. I try to highlight some things that are of interest, and I can't break every one of these down by any means. There's just too many. So just go back to it. It's great for this weekend to go back to the list I've posted tonight and throughout the week. Yes, you're gonna have to scroll through, quite a few comments, but you can go through and kind of get an idea of where we're setting up and where some positioning maybe.
So BB wants to know, for relative purposes, will the average volume have choices, as in 10-day, 3-month, 6-month, etc.?
I don't really focus too much on that. I just use what FinViz because it's easy and it's free. And then I like being able to have access to some of the other information at the same time. I really like to look at float and short float, especially if there's a very high short float in a stock and we're starting to see some volume coming in. If we already know that we have a dark pool and then we start to get bullish positioning in call flow, like that's going to really put a hurt on some folks that need to make a decision if they're going to continue to stay short or not. And they may not be seeing all that. And that's kind of the case with Carvana. CVNA does a very high short float. Other factors went into that trade as well, but it's nice to have FinViz as an overall general and use it. I mean, you could see if you like a little more fundamentals mixed in there and like to know where they are with their last reporting. You've got the information right there in front of your face, so it's a good research for kind of digging a little bit deeper. But in general, I would say I would prefer a 90-day. I think that gives a good balance, but I'll just use whatever they have, and I'm not even too sure. Yes, Samir. We also have the stock bot. Unfortunately, it's all the way at the bottom, and when there's like 100 people on voice, it's very difficult to get to, but it is a resource to be able to show you the percentage short.
And Brent J wants to know, if you are using the flow to time when to get in, or are you using flow to get out as well, particularly on longer dated options? So let's say you got some dark pool activity, you like what you see, you're looking for the flow to make an entry. When exactly would your entry and exit be? What is that based on?
Oftentimes it's just based off of knowing that we already had some dark pool prints and a collection of dark pool prints, and if it's aggressive flow, and it's also dependent on the name. Match is a perfect example. We had some flow hit the board that was bullish, but it wasn't enough size to create any kind of alert or make it yellow or purple. But Match will move off of any kind of flow that it gets because it doesn't often receive too much option flow. And that's just all stuff that takes time and takes some look back. On some of these stocks that are making some great moves, go and look through historical options and see what came through there, and see what, did it make a move and it just moved off of a few, of the white flows, then, that's a ticker that moves well off of any options flow. So keep that in your memory bank for the next time you see it, because it may be another mover. But sometimes just knowing like some of the history that I already have on some of these tickers, if I see good flow, good directional flow, I'll take the position just based off of that because it's been what I've been waiting for, because I consider that most of my research has already been done. I do like to see that there's some cherries on top for me, is that there's some insider buying as a cherry on top. And I do like to look and reference and see who may be holding that institutionally, where there's some recent, new positions. And that's, again, another cherry on top. But the flow helps me see where they're positioning, because I certainly don't want to be trying to play a move in weeklies when somebody's positioning out into December. I may not get my move. And that just goes back to just the general teachings and the education that Blackbox has provided with the flow in general. Don't try to take, a position in weeklies when they're clearly telling you we're interested in this stock because of, and positioning out into December. You may not get that move.
Awesome. So is there anything else? Mel is giving us her time. It is greatly appreciated. Let's take advantage of this opportunity to ask any kind of a dark pool question we might have. Keep in mind, this is new for almost all of us, so this is exciting to be a part of and to learn. If anyone else has any questions, again, jump on voice. We'd be happy to hear your voice. Type them below. We will get to your questions. Just let us know what you're thinking.
No, you probably already covered this, but so if I were to look at the file from, let's say Thursday, because you guys are working on this with Eric. So let's say if I want to see data from Tuesday, are you posting that somewhere currently?
It is. It's in this feed, and unfortunately, it's a hot mess because I kind of had asked, could we possibly have a dark room data only, and then a dark room chat? So like the dark room data would be locked, and only I could post there to make things a little bit easier.
No,
but it's so difficult to have the multiple rooms, and there's been a lot of complaints that there's too many rooms, and so unfortunately, it would be scrolling through and finding that.
That's maybe fine, but it is in here, right?
Maybe search Tuesday. Yeah, maybe search Tuesday and see what was happening that day.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, cool. I just knew I was behind, so.
So this is a newer formatting because he just started sending these, I think. So Monday would be kind of how I did it the old way, to where I screenshot it after I did all my research. I believe Tuesday was the first day we may have had a file.
Okay.
I think so. That something similar to this with the PDF so that you can access.
Sweet. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Oh, for sure. And I'm just going to let everybody know, I'm not going to be able to do class tomorrow, but I think tomorrow is going to be extremely important. So once I get the file, again, that comes through later after the market closes, and then I got to kind of tweak some things. I'll post the PDFs in here. So it's great that it's coming into the research, or it's coming into the weekend, and we can spend some time in research, because I think tomorrow we're going to see a lot, now that we've gotten a lot of the major earnings out of the way, and we've got Amazon, the big one, out of the way. I think we're going to see a lot of prints. So it'll be important to pay attention to.
Ooh, I'm excited.